Welcome back to Rise and Shine, where we explore the brightest ideas and the biggest movers in the real estate investing world. I'm Irismar, and alongside me,
Jim.
and we are ready to dive into another insightful conversation with a true leader in the field.
Yeah, today we are excited. We've got Cynthia Aasen, and Cynthia is a visionary in real estate investment, and she's one of the driving forces behind integrated equities. Now, her journey from a high-tech to top-tier real estate investor is nothing short of inspiring, and she showcases her unique blend of innovation, strategic acumen, and dedication to creating impactful investment opportunities.
And at Integrated Equities, Cynthia and her team have built a robust portfolio, emphasizing not just the financial returns, but also community development and sustainability. Their work spans across residential to commercial properties, and each project reflects her commitment to excellence and ethical investments.
It's really an incredible learning opportunity for investors. And Cynthia's approach goes beyond traditional boundaries, where she integrates and her team integrates global market insights with local expertise to create thriving real estate opportunities. So she's here to share with us her journey and some strategies.
100%. So let's get ready to gain some invaluable insights from one of the industry's best. So please join us in welcoming Cynthia Aasen to Rise and Shine.
Awesome. Now, we had the opportunity to meet Cynthia a few years ago at one of the real estate conferences, and we were just blown away. So we've certainly kept in touch with her over the years, and we're grateful to have her on. I think she's going to be coming in here soon to turn on her camera and microphone. And now Cynthia is in British Columbia.
In British Columbia, that is correct.
And so time zone difference. So there she is. Welcome, and you're muted, Cynthia, but thank you so much for joining us. Oh, you got to turn your mic on.
No problem.
This happens.
It happens all the time. It does not matter.
No, it's funny. I've got this mouse. I'm sorry. And hi, everyone. Yeah, I've got this mouse and I'd use two screens and I have to get a new mouse. I've decided because it does this all. I can't find it. And I'm like, okay, take it off, turn it off. Anyway, I found it. How are you guys?
We're doing great.
We're doing awesome. And thank you so much for joining us in beautiful BC. It's great to see you. I know you.
Nice today. We've got some sun.
Yes, finally. Well, I hope you guys have a beautiful year this year in BC. We know it's been a difficult year last year, but we're excited to have you on, Cynthia. It's been a while, and you know what? You have so many great products and opportunities to offer investors, but just take a moment back a little bit and tell us about yourself and your journey on how you got to integrated equities.
Long journey. I'm old. I'm just kidding. Yeah, so my journey to integrated equities. Well, I think I go way back to the early 90s when I really started selling real estate on the west side of Vancouver. I worked with a team, and one of the members of the team, who was a seasoned veteran, he really focused on investment real estate. So I kind of got a really good mentorship in, what are the key characteristics? Why should you invest in this? And we actually worked with a lot of clients that had purchased the multi-urban residential buildings. They were tax shelters back in the day. And actually, I wonder why today our governments don't just dust off that legislation, because it built thousands of rental properties in Vancouver area. So once the properties matured and these investors, wanted their money back, they started selling them. And what that did is it released these into the open market. So our whole focus was going after the absentee owners in these different areas. And they were typically investors. So I learned quite a bit just through practical experience. Our team focused on that. So that kind of took me into, I really like the investment side because I was in residential. So I didn't sell commercial, I was residential. And I started to really invest myself. Every time I'd find a property, I would look at it and do the numbers. Could I buy this as an investment property and rent it? That's how I started. I did it myself. I decided that's a great way. And that was my niche in the residential side, was just focusing on, buying that Chevy in a Cadillac zone. That meant I could go and improve it to see appreciation, but not only that, generate more rent. That's way back in the 90s. I did that. And then I joined a company that was buying buildings, doing the conversions to condominiums, or we call them strata here, from an existing revenue building, and putting together a rent spec to go to the lenders and say, we're going to do all this to the unit. What appraised value and what kind of financing can we get? So they put together this complete project. They called it the virtual apartment building. And they would then go to investors and say, you can buy before we do the conversion at this price. And after we do our magic, your value will be this. And we will also hire a property management to allow you to continue to own it, even if you live in Toronto and this property's in BC. So this whole program was very enticing. Lots of people invested in it, and it was a real estate sale. It wasn't anything that I do today, but it was a real estate sale. Now, banks changed their financing structures, making it very difficult for us to continue doing it. So it kind of has evolved to where I'm today, because you can't do what I did back then, which was ideal, because as an investor, you like to own and control your property.
Yeah.
Banks' fees just ate up any profitability and also made it very onerous or impossible to do. So fast forward, I have done a lot of the investment units active for clients. So private equity came into play sort of early, so I would say 2010. We started raising money for a company called Western Wealth Capital, which is a Canadian company that focuses on US multifamily properties. And they created a value add program. And they're the second largest multifamily owner in Phoenix now. So this company started in 2012, and now they've grown to this. They currently have 55 properties under their management, and investors invest in the company and have an interest. And as they improve the property, increase the income, the value goes up, and eventually it's a 3 to 5 year hold period. Their goal is to double your equity in 5 years. So that program, we were very interested and very active in it, and ultimately started to really look at these structures are a much easier and more passive way for investors. Because if you bought in my previous world, you had to go get a mortgage. You had, it was still, there was stuff to do, and it took time. And so for a lot of people, and then you buy so many more rental properties, and all of a sudden you hit walls with lenders. So you have to understand that world and work with a mortgage broker. It became more complicated. So the private equity side means that we focus on private equity real estate, which is simply you have the ability to buy an interest in either a multifamily building, a real estate investment trust, self-storage, purpose-built rental, and just put a minimum of 25,000 in, and you can be part of this. And our returns vary depending on the risk associated with each development. The least risk is the existing apartment building that runs already. It's already built. There's no, you're going to buy it and you kind of know what rent growth is. And, that's probably the least risk. Or if you're investing in a mortgage investment corporation based on they're lending money on a secured position, so they're going to pay less return. So our returns are anywhere from 8% per annum up to 25% per annum. So obviously risk reward comes into play. Generally speaking, the more risk there is, the higher the return.
Great. That is a wonderful introduction and journey. So thank you for sharing that. My goodness. We can certainly go in so many different directions, but I think based on the foundation of that journey and the acquisitions of properties and the pivots, what are the tools or criteria that you use to select those properties, and how do you balance that diverse portfolio?
So first question is, what are the tools? Well, there's so many tools now with technology. I have a research review team that when I find a new property, I will have them pull the stats, either Stats Canada, CMHC, the local real estate boards, all the sources that you need to do. People go where jobs grow. So you're looking for, first of all, residential. If you focus on residential, it's a laggard in any real estate cycle. It's the last sort of piece. Before residential values start going up, it usually, you'll see commercial activity, you'll see industrial activity, you'll see, like, for example, the EV plant that Honda. So, that community is going to be impacted by that. It stabilizes the employment in the area and it brings more people to it and all the peripheral services. So it's not difficult to identify locations and markets using, the research that we do. What's more difficult is securing the right property, the land, or going through rezoning, or, those are all the complicated things. And I hopefully with the new government attention to the need for housing and their comments about streamlining the planning process, that will relieve some of the pressures that are around trying to get from start to finish when it comes to real estate development. So, we use a variety of different tools. And like I said, it's pretty simple with technology. We have a checklist and, I think it's got about 30 different items that we go through: population growth, employment, median income, household formation, logistics, traffic, transportation. All of these things come into play when you're making a decision of where, number one, you would locate a building or where a good building would be located. Because, example, if it's poor infrastructure and people can't drive there easily, well, it's not as enticing for them to go rent there because now it's a problem. Less people have cars. Cars are an expense that, are expensive. Parking, maintenance, finding, a lot of buildings in cities now are like going from zero parking.
Yeah.
And that's what the municipalities are saying, because we need more housing. We don't necessarily need more parking. So infrastructure, transportation, like what bus lines, how do they access? All of that becomes really important in identifying a good location, because location's really important from both, are people moving there and is it sustainable, to is it easy to live there?
Yes, and learning what the future is of that municipality or that area and region as well.
Every city has an official community plan. Every government has, their oversight. And now with all the new information coming out, the team is very busy looking at what this impact and where it's going to impact the most.
Yeah, but no, you gave our viewers a great amount of ideas there and tools to, if they're starting off there. Absolutely. Now, Cynthia, sometimes when I go to some of these, you're a market dealer, you have these opportunities. Sometimes when I go on these other companies, they have a ton of offerings. And I've noticed that on integrated equities, you guys have just about 6 or 8 offerings. Can you tell why you are seeming to narrow it down? It doesn't seem that you have dozens and dozens as I've seen in the past.
Well, as an exempt market dealer, you're really just the facilitation to be able to, sorry, my earphone just died. I'm sorry. You're able to, as an exempt market dealer, you're able to offer any type of private equity, any, a startup, a technology, any type of company. Our expertise is real estate. That's my expertise. So I really don't know how to analyze a tech company and SaaS and all of that. So how could I advise my clients with any? We do have an independent review committee that reviews all of ours, and they would be CPAs, quantity surveyors, bankers, legal, all of our companies that we offer. We go through our independently verifying the information they provide. We don't just accept it at face value. We do our background checks. We make sure that, everything in the documentation we understand. So we will go through a discovery journey with them to have them fully explain and provide us all the documentation, which we're happy to provide to our clients. And we do through our investor portal by uploading the information. So I do encourage clients to do their own homework, to understand the investment. But more importantly, we don't want to offer things that we don't fully understand. So that's why we have 6 or 7 on there, and we don't work with startups. People that are on the companies that we offer
have proven track records, expert management teams, and specific investment strategies, and they've had successful multiple exits. So I think that mitigates a lot of risk for our clients. And that's a big problem. I mean, I know I actually don't like when I see, even competitors fall, because it impacts our entire industry. So, it has changed a lot over the last 3 years. There is a lot more regulation, and that's good. And it does require a lot more scrutiny by us and knowing my client and talking about suitability. But I think it's all for the better, because it will weed out anyone that's not structured for success.
I love that due diligence. Now, given that extensive expertise that you're applying now to what are the properties you're bidding on, part of that due diligence, could you share some insights on how the real estate market dynamics in Canada differ from other the global markets that you have dealt with?
Well, the only other market I've really dealt with is the US. And I think that the biggest difference between Canada and the US is banking.
Oh.
I mean, Canada has a lot more controls on the rental side. So we have the Residential Tenancy Acts in each province, and they vary from province to province, with BC and Ontario probably having the most rigorous. And in the US, it's generally market rent. And they have a lot more supply, so they can do that and still, but they don't control or regulate in the states that we have represented products. California's got rental controls just like Canada, and probably more rigorous. So the reality is there's a lot more options in the US. There's a lot more inventory. So could be a volume business. That in Canada, the tight inventory supply on revenue properties like apartment buildings, it's a very small pool. So we need, and that's the reason we're going through the crisis we are for affordability, because no one's building it, because it's not that profitable once you build it, with all of the fees that the cities and the municipalities and the timelines that they have. Plus now you got a rental control on top saying how much profit you can make. So it's not rocket science why Canada's in the situation it is. The current government direction seems to be trying to address the issues. And for us, we like that. And we are definitely moving alongside of the government, working with companies that are able to take advantage of these new funds that are being given. And hopefully, like I say, we haven't really seen it yet, streamlining the process with the municipalities from all levels. All positive for anyone that's building purpose-built rental. We're seeing a lot more of that because government policy is giving them some benefit. And it's interesting how it happens.
It is. Now, with the US and Canada, there's been a lot of real estate investment trusts in the past 6 to 9 months, I think. That, they haven't been able to meet the demands of the payments to the unit holders. So, they're not paying their dividends pretty much in terms of, a lot of them are monthly, some of them quarterly. They've had and these are big names in the industry that have had to do this. So what have you experienced with the companies and the projects, the opportunities that you have at Integrated Equities? And what do you see? How do you see the future if you had a crystal ball there? What's your...
I think rising interest rate environment has really impacted cash flow. And it would really depend on what kind of equity or debt stack these real estate investment trusts have. I know we offer one that we like, and it's Canada's largest, Centurion Real Estate Investment Trust, and they haven't missed any payments. In fact, their net asset value has grown. Their debt is fixed. It's around, I think, we just went to a lunch. I'm trying to remember exactly. I think it's around the debt average term is 6.5 years, and the average debt is around 3.5%. So they don't do floating rate debt, and they acquire. So now they're acquiring buildings, and obviously their interest rate would be higher. But keep in mind, the government is also offering much better rates for these purpose-built landlords than they are for you and I. They're not paying 7.2%. They're not paying, the rates we are. They're probably in the low 5s, whereas, everyone else that's buying an individual home is much higher. because that's the incentives that are out there through the CMHC MLI program, select program. So we don't have the problem of missed monthly income. We do have a property or a group that is challenged by the rising interest rates because they were an opportunistic value add fund and they had to float their debt. So they are working through the program and they're refinancing, and their cash calls are being made to investors to carry the properties through to better times. But we haven't had any foreclosures per se,
Right.
or loss of a huge everything. No, we haven't experienced that. And I think that attests to part of, we don't work with startups. We work with people that have been through these recessions, that understand that you need to protect yourself and mitigate risks. And how can you do that? And staggering debt and having contingencies built in and being able to manage through those processes.
And that really speaks to the due diligence that you and your team go through in terms of analyzing the opportunities for investors. Now, I don't know if so a lot of the investors in the circles that you and we are in, they are been drawn to promissory notes over the past couple of years. They've been high interest rate, and of course, with high interest comes high risk. And there's been some issues in the T notes space as well lately, and people not getting their money back and not getting paid. But they've been drawn to those high interest rates that offering. So that's usually about 15 to 20% return that the promissory notes get. Now, what do you have to say about?
Well, I think when you're lending money, you have to be like a bank. And I think that people don't understand why banks want all this documentation. They want it because they have to protect they're only charging X interest rate. So when you think about it as, if I invest in something, I get all the profit. So the banks are lending money. They want to make sure that they're secured. They want to make sure that I would rather take 6% and have it sustainable for the borrower than try to take 12%. So pretty soon they're not paying me.
Slow and steady.
Again, I think that if I had a prom note now that was in trouble, I would go and renegotiate it till I can get to a better time. Because it is hard times now. Food costs are higher. So these people that are borrowing money on a prom note, I would say, are a bit challenged credit-wise. So if you've done your homework on them, I'm not saying they're all, some of them just are recently divorced, would be one, new immigrant. They can't get money through conventional programs, so they have to go to secondary and alternative. My thing is really, as the lender, you have to know what the risks are associated with lending that money and what is your security and how do you get to it. So it's probably a good legal team to set it up so that you have recourse. But if I had someone that I was charging 12% and they were starting to default, I would go and renegotiate it and extend the term and maybe say, I will forgive for this period, just like COVID. They did that. The bank said, okay, you don't have to pay your mortgage payment now. The bank still made money because they just deferred it and charged you interest on that deferral. But nonetheless, it gave people breathing room to be able to live through that time.
Right. No, that's great advice for people. Yeah, I mean, so
It's the due diligence, right?
well, yeah, and what I think are, people got into, they got introduced to real estate investing, and they saw some people that have been doing really, really well, and instead of doing their due diligence and educating themselves, they sort of just dove in and got attracted to the nice interest rates, and they were appealing interest rates. But now I think with the shift, with some of the people, with some of the P notes not being returned or the payments not being made, people are now done the opposite. They're now holding tightly on their money, and I don't think they're still educating themselves, or now they're starting to educate themselves on the process. So these aren't steps that they do again. So it's
The thing is, we're all going to have lessons in our life. And if you've been investing for any length of time, you've experienced a loss. Anyone that tells me they haven't, they're lying. That's the reality. So it's not, are you perfect? Did you not lose money? What did you learn? And how are you going to incorporate that going forward to prevent yourself from doing it again? So I think that it's very typical. And one of the things I really try to say with investments is don't get emotional, because emotionalities will just create bad decisions. Sit down and figure out how to work it out and spend the time, not again, depending on how you leverage yourself. Part of my process is, an initial meeting with the client. We ask for have a long questionnaire. It's a full income and asset based questionnaire as well. So when I look at it, I know that I have a good idea of the client and what they've invested in, what their risk tolerance is, what their objectives are. And then I can marry the right investment if it's suitable. No, it's not suitable for people if it's not suitable. And you can't, once you go through that exercise, you can't change that. And it does help people. I mean, I've had a lot of people go, "Oh, we've never really thought of it that way." Well, good. I'm glad, because now it takes too much. I say young people can afford to lose. I go, no, they can't. In
Good.
today's world, no one can afford to lose. We have high taxes. It's hard to make money. You keep every nickel and you make sure it's working for you. So how do you start? I tell people Wealthsimple's a great platform to teach young people about money.
Yes.
And just go through it. That's Power Financial, and they've thrown a lot of money into that. So it's an excellent resource. It allows people that don't have this asset base to start. It allows them to learn. And I encourage the saving through that. I don't necessarily just leave your money in a bank. I do encourage that if you make money, you should be saving a percentage of it. And the younger you start, the less you have to save every month. But get into that habit. So, I truly believe that there's room for what we offer. We aren't looking to take all of people's money and put it into our deals. It's really about, does this work for what your objective is? And we have a concentration level. No more than 10% of your net financial assets, which is liquid. That's RSP, TFSA, cash, liquid assets, not real estate, liquid. Should be in one issuer. So if I have $1 million, that means I can put 100,000 into one deal. That's what suitability is about. I cannot invest more than 30% of my net financial assets in our product. So now you can get that alternative where there's generally higher returns, but no, it would be not it's not a good idea to invest too much. And that's one of the things I found throughout my journey. A lot of clients are overexposed either to the P notes, or either they go in and they go in big. And that's where our industry is really starting to regulate more and do audits to make sure that we're not overexposing clients. Now, it's logical. We've already taken the steps to know this before going in, because we don't want to risk someone's child's education or future. Why would anyone want to do that? You want to help them. So if you take the attitude that there is a good amount, or there's a proper amount that you can expose to get the higher returns, I think you'd be doing your portfolio. You can increase the returns.
Love that, because it's a holistic approach, right? You're looking out for your clients, and that's really a big
One
deal.
thing, I've been in the business 30 plus years. You can't stay in any business if you're not looking out to act in the best interest of your clients.
Yes, we all
How
make
could you
mistakes.
stay in the business unless you're really good at acquiring new clients? But I have clients that I'm working for their grandchildren now. Like,
Oh.
it's almost crazy. So yeah, I've done this a long time. So it's fun. It's kind of fun sometimes, because you see the young person, you remember the client way back in the day, and you're like, wow, there's so many similar characteristics.
Yeah, no, I love it. Now you mentioned, Cynthia, a moment ago, you mentioned power.
Power
Right.
Financial. Power Financial is the driver behind Simple Wealth.
Yeah, well,
Simple.
okay, and they've really Power Financial has really adapted to the fintech industry and startups.
Yeah, I mean, but lots of money. Like, just I was reading an article, and they were talking about the amount that they've invested in that platform. I think it's over 200 million.
they're going heavy and it's growing quite well for them. So it's good for them that to adopt that early on. They were one of the first for sure.
So that would actually be a perfect segue to my next question. How have you incorporated the new advancement of technology or AI in integrated equities?
Right. So I think we've done a portal. We do an IBM cloud server portal that captures all our clients' information, which allows us to run reports and, audits and figure out, where our clients are trending. We use AI a lot in the research side. It just simplifies. You can pull a lot of data quickly. Now we still have to filter it. You still have to understand it. AI is good. It's still learning. And so, everything's going through the review process with my team and our team, the research side of it, to identify. So we'll work with a company. First of all, we'll identify a company that we like because we've figured out the market. So then we'll approach the company if it's real estate based. And I just went out and reached out to a couple companies that are doing some student housing in different areas. And I think we don't have student housing on our shelf, which I would like. So, that's kind of how it starts. And then we dig deep go fairly deep into each market. So we understand the AI side of it. Like I said, we use it. It's not as, it's sophisticated, but it's not. I don't know how to explain it, but you'll pull stuff and it'll come up and you're like, that makes zero sense. So I don't think it's there yet. Can't just push, and I'm sure it will be. Like it's growing so fast and quickly. So if you're not using it, it's quite, I don't, people say, oh yeah, AI, I go, I use it all the time for what it's good for right now. And I will continue to use it because I feel that it'll really benefit. I'm working with the team right now to put AI on the website for questions that are asked so that they can be pulled to certain parts of your website. So it makes efficiencies, time. Again, I go back to, I think our biggest, most sacred commodity right now is time. And I don't know why, but it seems like even though we're getting way more efficient, time feels like it's at a premium.
You're right. I think COVID gave us an opportunity to recognize that, and the world is recognizing that that's what they want more now instead of giving up that time. So absolutely.
Great. Now, giving on that, not only adapting to technology and incorporating it, how important is the concept of impact investing to you? And, how do we ensure that those investments contribute positively to the communities and the environment?
Well, I think a lot of the developers that are working today understand that. Like I know the companies we work with are really well aware that people want to have, sustainable materials. They don't want to see, and also some affordability in each of their buildings where, there is a section, but again, government policies dictating that to some degree by saying, if you want these rates and these terms, this is what you have to provide back to the community, infrastructure, parks, community, and also some affordability. So that, I think that has impact, but it's not just us. I think the people that we represent are looking and doing that very carefully. One of the developers we work with, they're doing BC housing and they're working with Indigenous groups to build their community centers. So there is, we're seeing more and more of it. And the importance of it is that you are giving back. I mean, there's lots of wealth out there. I think that, it's good to give back to support a community that you're in. And I feel that that's happening more and more than it did, say, 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it never even, it wasn't even thought of, I don't think.
Yeah, there's definitely been a push, and we have certainly noticed that. No, Cynthia, without giving out the secret recipe here, can you share with us and the viewers the emerging trends that you're currently most excited about in real estate, and how are you and integrated equities positioning yourself to capitalize on those trends?
Emerging trends. Well, like I mentioned, government policy is really giving a leg up to purpose-built developers. So purpose-built rental. We're definitely aligned with several that are involved in communities in BC and in Ottawa. And so these companies are building affordable rental. So yes, we have those contacts. In the US, we really like the open air retail concept. We're seeing a lot of that replacing the old fashioned big mall. Seems like no one wants to go into a mall, and all they want to do is go and have, there's your husband, there's your wife, there's your kids, or there's your partner, there's what. So all of a sudden you go shopping and, you've got something else. They can go play in the playground while I do my shopping, and then there's an entertainment or a restaurant. So these are growing and there's huge demand. It's actually one of the fastest growing segments in the commercial side. And why US? Because Canada just doesn't have the numbers, the volume for a company to go and actually make a business model out of it and repeat it over and over again. So we have identified a company. They're actually based out of Vancouver. They have head office they started in Vancouver, 2 commercial realtors, and now their head office is in Denver with their partners, and they're doing open air retail centers. So that's one trend that we're involved in. Self-storage has always been in demand, but we identified a company that kind of married the two, car wash and self-storage.
Oh.
And so people would, it created a good cash flow immediately for filling up the self-storage, and they built brand new facilities. So that was another one. Trends. Well, there's, real estate is student housing, I mentioned. I think that's another trend that is good, and it's been healthy. But to find a company that only does that because that's their specialty, as with everything, when you build a plan and you repeat it over and over and over again, you improve it, you tweak it, you evolve it, and it becomes more profitable. So we like companies that are singularly focused, don't go off chasing rabbits, to stick to their knitting, and they tend to deliver better results.
That's really, I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day. Does the logistics industry excite integrated equities at all?
Can you define, give me an example so I can answer to the point?
Trucking.
Well, you do want logistics for infrastructure and transport, but if it would be warehousing, I would think, and that would be on the industrial side, which, yes, definitely industrial play. We're actually talking to a company out of Calgary that is an industrial play, which could be very interesting for us.
Insane. Wow, those are great trends, everyone.
That's a good, and I think that's an inside scoop there
Yes,
too.
inside 100%. Now, I need to ask, as a successful woman in a traditionally male-dominated industry, what advice would you give to another woman that is aspiring to leadership in real estate investing?
I guess I have never really thought that there is any restrictions. That's just been my philosophy, is go, you're able to do this, and you just have to have a plan. What am I going to do? And stick to the plan, have a good plan, and be able to capitalize that plan. To start in an industry that if you aren't being paid to do that industry. So for young people, I tell them, go work with the best and get paid while you're getting educated. That could be your plan. Take 2 years when you're out of school, go work for Brooksfield, go work for a big company and see how it's done. Get an education and educate yourself on someone else's nickel. And then because it also builds your resume, it also will give you ideas. It'll also focus you on what you like and what you don't like. So you're learning kind of what you want to do without having to pay while you're learning and to make the mistakes. So get that in another arena, like learn how to do it. If you're going to be in a sales, if you're raising money, go work with an insurance company and sell insurance for 2 years. Honestly, they're the best salespeople. They're trained really well. IBM is another one that used to train exceptionally well. I don't think they're doing what they used to do with the copiers, because that's all gone. But the reality is there are big companies that have great training programs. So find out what your plan is. What do I like doing? Do I like talking to people? Do I like researching? And go get educated on someone else's nickel. and that gives you a good resume start, then find a company that you can identify with. Like we went to Integrated, it's not a big EMD. We went there because we could have autonomy and control what was on the shelf. That's why we went there as a team. So, it really is developing your own plan and, committing to it and having an complementary education that you can actually speak to what you're offering, because you are offering an investment. So you need to have the education, the knowledge to be able to speak proficiently to the clients.
I love that. Yeah, that was a really great couple of tips there as well. And for those watching as well, when you're at these companies and you're working there, make sure you network and make connections with people, because if you move on to another company, you want to really keep that connection alive and nurture it. Those are people that they move around sometimes, or they could show up in your company, so it's all about making connections.
And I think it's really important to never burn a bridge. No matter if you're frustrated or angry, you leave very professionally and say, thank you very much for all that you've done for me. Doesn't, keep that, because you'll never know when you're going to run into that person sitting across the table again.
100%. No, thank you for the beautiful sharing and insight, because I asked that question because we have those unlimited bias that we will carry as women, but as you share as well, you never had that. For you, it's like, I'm going to do it, I'm going to be capable, is how I'm going to do it. So I love that aspect, because that you probably didn't face that limitation, but for our viewers out there, if you do, is to think, how am I going to do it?
Right. I worked in the brokerage industry. I worked for Pitfield Mackay Ross when I got out of school. There was a bias. There was an all man's industry. And, I was very fortunate to work for a very large bond trader and be his executive assistant. And he was very supportive of, letting me, help him. I actually got him fully automated because that's what I like. I'm always been interested in efficiencies, because I just don't really like repeating like mind-numbing, boring stuff. I hate it. So, I did that, and he was very supportive, but I realized very quickly as a young woman that I would never be promoted to mergers and acquisitions, which was really, or corporate finance, because one, they believed that I would go and have a family and I would leave them for maternity, which again, ridiculous, but that's how it was back in the day. And real estate just fell kind of into that. There were a lot of women in real estate at the time. So it was more of an industry that it didn't seem to have a barrier. And that's why I got into it. If you are good at what you do, people will listen to you and they will invest with you.
That's right. Yes.
100%. Thank you for sharing that.
And that is key. Now, Cynthia, what is in the future? What does that have for Cynthia? What's going on? And are you going to be?
I'm winding down my business, but I have a team, so they'll carry on. Like I said, I've been doing this a long time, and I've had a lot of clients that have been around a long time. So I kind of feel like I feel it, because they're getting older, and I feel that they're winding down. So it's okay for me to wind down, and that will be. I'll probably stay doing stuff, education, helping people understand it. That would be the area that I think I can give the best. Give back that I can for the industry, and help people understand what exactly they should look for, how to research, do their stuff, really assist in the understanding side.
I love it.
Beautiful.
I love it. Well, I'm so happy you were able to spend this time with us, Cynthia. Now, for those watching and they want to reach out and learn more, what do they need to do, and how can they contact you?
Easy to contact me. I have an email. Happy to put it in the chat if you want, and my phone number. So, okay, got it.
We'll share it.
Okay.
Share that with everybody watching, and they don't need to be scared. They can sign up, have a discovery.
Oh yeah, they can do anything. They can do whatever they want. I do not pressure sell at all, ever. I mean, it's really about, I normally take 2 to 3 meetings with the client. I'll be the first to say not suitable, I'll keep you on the mailing list, easy to learn. Here's something I would do. I would definitely help people understand and make their own decisions. Nothing worse than, having a client that invested in something and really doesn't know what they invested in. You have three things in life: time, money, and peace of mind. And they're different for everyone. And peace of mind is really about, I made an informed decision and I'm okay with it and I can live with it. If you don't do that, then I really don't know that if I want that client, because I would be constantly helping, them or holding their hand and they were uncomfortable. Our investments are illiquid. So, which means there's either redemption restrictions, you can only, you pay a fee to get out of it. They're a longer term investment as well. So you really have to understand and be in it for the time that they forecast, and understand that you can't get your money out because you're scared now. So that's really important for me to explain to people going in. But certainly we have lots of resources. I have a website, which I can give you, it's just my name, but I've put a lot of blogs on there, and, just for people to be able to go in and, learn.
That's awesome. No,
Beautiful. Thank you. No, thank you for that. I think if anything, they will reach out to have a new level of awareness of where they are. Because I love
Right.
the no pressure. It's just the educational piece and informational.
Right.
I think
I mean, again, it's something that people want to understand a lot. I get it. That, alternative, what am I doing? I don't even understand this. I don't own the property, especially if they're real estate investors that are used to buying and owning. It makes them feel uncomfortable that they can't control it. So that's really why we spend a lot of time helping them understand.
beautiful. Well, for all those that can't see the chat, I'll just say it here. It's Cynthia at integratedequities.com, and you can find Cynthia on her website at cynthiaasen.com. And
And don't forget, there's 3 A's in a row.
That's right.
Everyone likes to go, I tried, I couldn't find you. Just, it's funny. But hey,
I didn't catch that, but I got you. Okay, yeah. Okay, very cool. Well, again, thank you so much, Cynthia. It's wonderful. Hang tight, and we'll just end up here. Thank you for everybody for watching. A great episode of Rise and Shine with Cynthia Aasen, and we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week, and let us know what you think in the comments.
Talk to you soon.
Have a great day.
thanks, guys.